Welcome to Epilogue Podcast, the show where we discuss some stuff that happened on a different show ages ago which nobody really cares about anymore.
Hi, I'm Portponky.
And I'm LeBloc.
Today we're discussing Deep Space Nine, Season 4, Episode 10, Our Man Bashir. Bashir and Garrick enjoy a Bond-themed holosuite game whilst playing for the crew's lives.
So why hasn't this happened sooner, where an episode takes place basically all in a holosuite? It's so fertile for any type of story.
You've not seen Next Gen, and the question you just asked demonstrates that.
Oh, so that's why this hasn't happened until now? I didn't realize what an obvious thing it is to do until this episode. And then I thought, oh, why did they wait until season 4? But you make it sound like this was done ad nauseum on Next Gen.
Next Gen had a few season staples. So every season they'd have a Q episode.
Oh, gosh.
Every season they'd have a holodeck episode. The holodeck episodes were usually worse than the Q episodes. So it's I don't know why they did it for Deep Space Nine. I guess they just can't resist. Although I'll say this one is good in comparison to some of the Next Gen ones.
Okay, that helps. That explains. Because it's a perfect excuse to do whatever.
Yeah, it totally is. And you would think that would be good, but often they try and make them far too comedy-ish. And they just come off as... I don't know, they just are not very good, to be honest. Go and watch the Next Gen ones and you'll say, wow, they took a risk making a Deep Space Nine holosuite episode. But I think it paid off. This is a fun episode.
I like this one a lot. I had fun with it. It's such a ridiculous premise, and then they found a way to have serious consequences. There were real stakes. They pulled it off. I thought it was fun.
The whole concept of Bashir role-playing as James Bond is awesome. It's just so fitting for his shallow, sort of self-pompous, self-righteous, I don't know, character. Almost like he's really Julian Bashir, and then when he's not in the holosuite, he's role-playing a doctor.
It's even better that Garrick is there. One, because Garrick is always great, but two, Garrick is an actual spy, and so he gets to pick apart this fictional representation of a spy.
He gets so annoyed.
Yeah, this isn't right at all.
But wasn't Ian Fleming an actual spy?
I have no idea what his background is.
I can't remember. I know Roald Dahl was a spy.
I do know he picked the name James Bond because he wanted as dull a name as possible. And so it's funny to me that that line, Bond, James Bond, is so known, and people replace their own names, as Bashir does here. Bashir, Julian Bashir. And he's just taking the place of a dull name. Anyway, that's pointless.
You can't say surname, first name, surname, without people drawing a Bond connection. It's the sexiest way to phrase your name.
And entirely unneeded. You could just say Julian Bashir.
That is a criticism of James Bond.
That he doesn't say his name is Julian Bashir?
That he leaves his first name hanging as a question mark and then fills it in as if the person is so interested in the name Bond. Like, but what Bond? It could be anything.
But the first time he did it, it was...
It says Mr.
No, he was mirroring someone stumbling. This woman stumbled over her name. She said her last name first, and then corrected herself. Oh, I should say my whole name. and then he mimicked her in a form of flattery.
Garrick broke into Bashir's holosuite game. That is a very brave thing to do.
And we find out it's illegal.
Oh, well, that makes sense. It would be like breaking into someone's imagination.
Which Jake did.
Did he?
When Nog was in a runabout practicing for Starfleet.
Yes. I thought you meant he broke into someone's imagination. Very confused. So Jake is a criminal.
Yeah, that's established now. That's canon. Jake is a criminal.
Dax went into Worf's program.
Yeah, these people are doing this all the time.
Maybe it's to do with whether or not they lock the doors.
Why is it so easy to break in? They say break in, but I'm wondering what that even entails. Do they just say open and then they go in?
No, presumably when Jake or whoever went in, they just went to the holosuite and Nog was in there. And they said, oh, can I come in? And the computer said, yeah, here you go. But with Bashir, Garrick said, can I come in? And the computer said, no. You don't want to come in here. This is a private, locked simulation. And then he presumably pulled some trick to unlock the door secretly and
Spy trick.
In. Yeah, teleport in.
So I asked for more cribbing of movies, and I got it. This one is the most blatant one, I think.
Well, it's a parody, in a sense. So
yeah.
In that sense, they did a pretty good job. It had everything. All the ingredients were there.
They checked off all those boxes.
It seemed like a loving parody, though. It wasn't too spiteful about Bond or anything.
No, it felt like they appreciated Bond for what it is. Over the top, campy, but it's entertaining all around.
Well, Bond must have influenced Star Trek to some extent, because they're from a similar era. How could it not? Okay, actually, I don't really think it did that much. They had fun with it, and that's good, because if they have fun with it, it means we have fun with it when we put it in our faces.
That's true. One aspect of the loving parody I really want to highlight is the music. I thought the music sounded as if it were lifted from a classic Bond film.
Yeah, they had the blazing horns, the deep electric guitar, bass, I don't know what it is. I'm not a musical instrument. They had everything. It was noticeably awesome.
It's funny to me that Garrick was by his side most of the time. In Bond films, Bond usually has a female companion.
Garrick really wanted it to be a two-player game.
Yeah.
He's like the guy that picks up the second controller and just presses buttons, but it doesn't do anything. Bashir also shot Garrick in the neck.
And says he aimed to kill.
He didn't say he was aiming to kill. He just asked Garrick how does he know he wasn't aiming to kill.
Fair enough.
Leaves it ambiguous. Although it was a gun assembled from shoe parts, I doubt it's accurate. The barrel was like an inch long.
So this says you can go into a holosuite, turn off the safeties, and kill yourself?
Yes.
These are suicide machines.
No.
Oh.
Because you need high-ranking authorization to turn off the safeties, usually.
Oh, okay. But why is that even in there? They shouldn't even risk that. I understand for plot reasons, but what application would that have?
Okay, what if you wanted to do surgery on someone using holographic tools?
Ooh, that is a wonderful example.
That is from an episode.
Oh, okay.
Well, not really an episode. It's from Voyager.
You could replicate the tools, but that would take longer, I think.
Well, I think holodecks are kind of like replicators. They've said that they use replicated matter and holograms. But yeah, you probably could replicate the tools. But what if the doctor performing the surgery is a hologram?
Okay.
There's reasons why you might want to turn the safeties off.
Yeah, I'm convinced now. Thank you. As long as not any random person can turn them off, I'm okay.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's completely safe. We've seen the internal circuitry with a spatula in there. And we've seen they have an excellent approach to security.
Top notch.
At the end, Bashir blows up the world, and Dr. Noah says, I didn't really expect to win. Made me giggle.
There was a lot in this that made me giggle. It was pretty funny.
I think parody is a lot easier for them to do because you just sort of have to poke fun at something. It's a lot easier than a lot of the character humor they try to do, which is... I don't know why they struggle with it so much, but they can't usually do parody because it would be so out of place.
Right.
So I guess they maybe just built it up so much. This was a big release for them.
Parody is easier because the parts are already there for you, and you don't even need to make a joke a lot of times. For example, Worf blowing some toxin through a cigar and knocking them out. It's funny and it's fitting, and it's just lifted from Bond, the sort of stuff you see in Bond.
Dax as Honey Bear, was it?
I think so.
Well, just all of her stuff was pretty funny. How she's so naive and swoons over Bashir. But in a way that's humorous and not too cringy or anything. That was just funny, but in a Bond film, you would get pretty much that sort of exact sequence of things. And it would be kind of deadpan.
Yeah, it's stuff you would see in a Bond film, except here it's done with a knowing nod, I guess. But they're not really poking fun of it. They're just imitating it. And the imitation shows how ridiculous it is because of the context. This is Star Trek, not Bond.
They imitated it well enough that they got a litigious letter from MGM.
Uh-oh.
Basically saying, do not do that again. So they maybe hit a bit too close for home. Although I don't think they actually... I think if it did go to court, they'd be fine. Because it's clearly a parody.
Yeah, and parody is protected.
It never came to that, but I think they annoyed them by doing this.
Okay, you brought up Dax and Bashir. They keep pushing that pairing. Last episode, they were overly friendly with each other while looking at Nog's stuff, his wares that he was selling. And they had that moment huddled together.
They're just friends now.
Yeah, but it feels like they want to push that more.
Well, why would they do that? Honest question.
I don't know.
Okay. I don't know either.
Because Odo and Kira isn't enough.
There's not enough UST.
What is that?
You have to look it up.
Okay. Also, with Odo and Kira, I like that Odo recognized Kira's voice despite her absurd accent.
Oh, it's so sweet. Yeah, he thinks about her a lot. It's sweet, though.
Yeah, it's sweet. It doesn't come off creepy or anything. It would be creepy if he said something like, I've been studying her speech patterns, and that matches...
For hours every night.
Nana Visitor looked like she was having a lot of fun doing that accent.
That was hilarious. Anastasia.
Who is Dax?
I have some criticisms. Okay, well, I have kind of one criticism, but I have a couple.
Guess?
Well, I have a couple more that are about some of the stuff in the holosuite. But seeing as that's just a cheesy novel Bond,
Yeah,
no, it's not novel. It's a cheesy holosuite game. You can expect. So it's a nitpick within the context where a nitpick isn't valid. Yeah, you can guess what I have.
it doesn't make any sense that their patterns were stored in the holosuite specifically because the holosuite is designed to store highly complex patterns. All that info would just be ones and zeros. It would put it wherever it had room to do so.
Well, would it be ones and zeros though?
I don't know. I say that, but I actually like that explanation.
If you don't know how it works underneath, then it's hard to say. I don't think the transporters are supposed to turn people into raw information. Like, they're not supposed to be kill and clone. They're supposed to be sort of wrap you in a warm energy blanket and then warp space from one place to another or something.
So it's not destroying and recreating.
It's not supposed to be, but I guess my criticism is it? Because they had the crew's brains stored in the computer memory and could transport them out of the holodeck. So
doesn't that mean it's creating?
Yeah, so are these crew guys at the end clones now? Did O'Brien die again? Presumably, if the file's in the computer memory, they could make multiple copies with more holodeck characters. So, to explain, they just create a random holodeck character, apply Cisco's neural signature, and do the same thing again, and they would have another person with Cisco's brain. I don't know. I don't think that would work. But it's problematic that part of the transporter signal was stored as a file.
Copy paste.
Yeah. So, that's kind of canon breaking a little bit.
They had to come up with something, but it bothers me they didn't have enough space.
That actually makes sense. To store the atomic representation of pretty much anything. Well,
digital space would be trivial at their time.
I guess, but it would be fantastically huge. I don't know, because the replicator can make tons of stuff, so all that must be stored somewhere. Shall I go over the other things I had for the holosuite?
Yes, let's hear those.
Just a couple of lines that didn't really make much sense. Hippocrates Noah says, once they fire the laser, millions of tons of molten lava will shoot out from the Earth's crust.
Oh, he says crust?
Well, whatever he says. But he says millions of tons of molten lava. That's not very much lava. I looked it up, and the Great Pyramids of Giza probably weighs around 6 million tons. So if that turned into lava, that would qualify his millions of tons of molten lava. But it wouldn't. Well, Cairo might be in a bit of a bad way, but it would not destroy the world. Also,
that would not wipe out civilization.
No. Also, I don't understand how pulling a lot of lava out would actually sink anything. But whatever. It's a Bond plot, so it doesn't have to make sense.
You just have to know he wants to kill everyone.
Yes, and he can do it with lasers. The other one was that they have this mansion on the side of Everest, and Bashir says you must not get many tourists. They would get a lot, though. That would be very, very noticeable.
Secret Agent Julian Bashir says we will see him again. So I think we will, because he told us.
Well, that's from Bond as well.
Oh, is it? I didn't pick up on that.
At the end of Bond films, after the credits, it says James Bond will return.
Oh, that's what that is. Okay.
Not in all of them. In most of them, though. And often it says James Bond will return in... And then the next film, if they know what it is. And sometimes they just leave it hanging. And I think some of them don't do it at all. So, yeah, that's just a Bond reference. Although I think it was also a subtle nod that if this episode is well received, they might be doing it regularly.
Yeah.
Once a season.
They had the perfect out. If it was a disaster, oh, well, we said that because of Bond.
Yeah. That's actually pretty clever, I guess. I have a question for you regarding whether or not you have a quote.
And I have an answer for that question.
What's the answer?
Yes, I do.
And what's the quote?
So this quote has appeared before, but I didn't highlight it before, so now I will. Doctor, I believe there's hope for you yet.
That is Garrick's go-to line for when someone actually shows any sort of lack of emotions / willingness to do what it takes.
Willingness to murder?
Yeah, well, that's what it was. It's a good line because it shows how detached Garrick is from everything.
Yeah.
He's impressed that Bashir has the lobes to shoot him in the back. And by lobes, I mean balls.
Got it.
By balls, I mean guts, because it's sexist to say balls or lobes. We still haven't got the real clunker that is looming over us. We're 10 episodes in now, and it's been pretty decent for this season.
I'm not used to this.
All right. It was a good time having fun with Julian Bashir, the spy, the shallow human.
This episode wouldn't have worked as well earlier in this show's run because of what they were doing with Bashir.
It was well placed. It was a nice, fun little jaunt with a character that probably needed a little bit of humanity put onto them in terms of Garrick's constant ribbing.
Let's move on to the next one.
Okay.
Bye-bye.